Accessing archive. Authorizing. Access granted. Accessing file.
So when it comes to you and being a comedian, how did you discover that that's what you wanted to do, and how did that go? And then kind of what was it that made you end up kind of going on hiatus as well?
I guess I never really looked to the future in my life. I always lived not with any sort of like enlightenment tinge to it, but like I always lived for the moment, just I always just lived when I was a teenager, especially. Like I just lived to go to parties and get fucked up and make people laugh. Like I don't know when it was, but I just discovered early on that no matter what situation I was in, I could just make people laugh. And that always seemed to be a good thing to bring people together and diffuse a tense situation, or something like that. And I just thought,
Right.
well, that's fun. I like doing that, and it seemed to work out for me. And then I would do that in school, and I would
Mm-hmm.
do that. I just did it all the time. It was the most enjoyable thing for me to do. But like I said, it never seemed like this thing. Like I never thought like I was going to do that as a career. I never really thought about career. I just thought about what was going on next weekend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it didn't really hit me until after I graduated college, and started working, that I was like, well, this sucks. This this really sucks. Like this isn't
Where's the
fun.
spice in my life?
Yeah, because I was always able to get decent grades and move on,
Mm-hmm.
in school, but always just have fun as well. And I didn't really feel that so much when I started working, so slowly started dipping my toe into comedy. But then the other thing was that I had friends that were really funny, so I was still very much in this party kind of mode. I remember the first open mic that I went to in New York, and I thought, "Oh, this is weird." It was just a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of comedians in this dark room, and it wasn't like a party. It wasn't like fun. So that is what so I didn't go back for a while. And
Mm-hmm.
then eventually when I did go back, I realized that this was something that I was good at, and I enjoyed it for a while. It was fun. And yeah, I got to a point where I think I was about maybe 3 years in to doing it, and I was doing club spots and having a lot of fun, and doing a lot of good sets all over the city. But I just wasn't feeling. I was feeling like I wanted something more, and
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to Chris Ryan's podcast, Tangentially Speaking, and he was always telling these stories about traveling the world and backpacking around the world. And I thought, man, that just sounded so exciting to me. At the same time, I was doing a lot of psychedelics. I was listening to a lot of like Alan Watts and Terrence McKenna, and I was reading all kinds of things. And so my worldview was just expanding. And when you're doing comedy, especially when you're doing it in New York, it's so competitive that you really have to just do as many sets as possible. So it was, my whole life was, I would walk dogs during the day for rich people, and then I
Mm-hmm.
would go and do as many sets as I could possibly do in a night. And then I would just do that every night, and I'd be out till like 4 a.m. So I was like living at night, sleeping, during the day, and then going to walk dogs. And I just got to this point where I felt kind of tired of it a little bit. Like, even though I was
Mm-hmm.
doing pretty okay, I wanted to see the world. I wanted to do new things. So I bought a one-way ticket to Bangkok, Thailand, and just backpacked around Southeast Asia for a while.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
really cool. I feel like I understand where you're coming from, and it's a similar thing I think that happened with Steven. He's still a super funny guy, and he's our pretty much go-to person on camera when it comes to things we need, said, or because as a company, sometimes we're shooting commercials for our partner company Sheath, for example, and he's so good at just being charismatic on camera that he still gets to use that comedy. But essentially, yeah, that competitive nature of all the kind of people, everyone wants to be the star of the show. And, people kind of joke about your set. Oh, you bombed, whatever. And it just starts to feel kind
Oh,
of
I never
like,
bombed.
oh, good. That's good.
No.
Well, I'm just saying, yeah, like, it's just funny how, like good times can kind of turn into oddly stressful times. And then you kind of want to get a little bit of a separation from that, and then just kind of rediscover who you are and stuff. So how was Thailand? That's incredible.
It was awesome, man. I mean, I think a lot of that, what you're talking to too, there was a point where I really started to feel like comedy was becoming more of a job, because like the
Mm-hmm.
better you get, the more it becomes work. And I just I
Mm-hmm.
know that work is a part of life, but there's this delusional part of me that's just like, man, let's just avoid work as much as possible, no matter what, in
Mm-hmm.
all of its forms. So going to Thailand was that,
Right.
I bought a one-way ticket there, didn't know anybody, just like booked a hostel for a couple nights in Bangkok, immediately met people from the Netherlands and Australia, a lot of Australians actually, and drinking a lot, and people from London, and just people from all over. It was so cool to be in this world of people, young people from all around the world, just who had grabbed backpacks and were all on a similar mission to just explore and discover and just live.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I did. I didn't make any plans. I just went with the flow. Like I met people, and people were like, you want to go up to Chiang Mai for the week? And okay, cool, let's go there. And yeah, we're going
Mm-hmm.
to this like hippie town called Pai. You want to come up there? And we're going to rent motor scooters and ride them up there. You want to do that? I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Oh,
Wow.
we're taking a boat from northern Thailand to Laos. You down for that? It's a 2-day boat ride. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So
Wow.
it was just going with the flow, just living in the moment and meeting people, and having a
I
lot of new
love that.
experiences. Yeah, it was awesome.
Was
Um,
there much of a language barrier?
it's interesting. I wonder. I've traveled to a lot of countries. I'm like, how do I fucking get around in these countries?
Exactly.
You learn the words that you need to know, I think,
Right.
because it's
Just like the action, just like taxi,
right.
I'm going to this street, like you just say like the minimum stuff.
And
Like,
nonverbal communication is really
mm-hmm.
important, gesturing things as well. So I think I had a little sheet of things like where's the bathroom, or
Mm-hmm.
food, or things like that. But then I would find myself with some people. Some people would know more, so they would be like the leader and figure things out for us.
Totally.
Yeah, and when you're traveling in a group like that, it makes it a little bit easier because everybody has a little skill that they can contribute or knows a little something. So yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
and definitely
I
took.
don't imagine there were very many psychedelics over there,
I
huh?
was just about to say I definitely took a lot of psychedelics over there. I did.
That's counterintuitive because you hear a lot of these Asian countries being like super anti-drug, anti-psychedelic, and I figure there's probably ways around that, but I just don't know how crazy it is because I haven't been. So how was it? Was it stigmatized there, but you just had fallen into the right group of friends, or what happened?
Well, yeah, the government's not too keen on it, and you hear
Mm-hmm.
you hear stories like people getting entrapped by setup jobs to buy weed at a bar, and it's really some mafia guy, and then he holds you for ransom, and you hear these crazy stories, and you hear about you know you're gonna get 40 lashes and death sentence. They're gonna
Mm-hmm.
chop your head off, and I just
Yep.
I mean, stupidly, I guess I just didn't really pay attention to a lot of that stuff. But just like anything, you kind of play it smart and you use your intuition and kind of figure out who the people are that know things and who you can trust and who you can't. And I just felt into that, and in the right moments would find myself in situations where there were a lot of fun drugs around, and we would
Mm-hmm.
and we partied, and mushroom shakes were big, and
Wow, I've never
yeah.
had a mushroom shake.
Oh, yeah, and it was I'll never forget this when I landed in this town, Vang Vienne, Laos.
Mm-hmm.
It's known as this kind of crazy backpacker party town. So the whole town is kind of serving the kind of backpacker community, and it was a nice respite from the sort of cultural exploration that I was doing. I was trying to find local people and interesting things, and then just kind of go to this place in Laos where it's just a bunch of backpackers partying. And I never forget this one bar I went to. They had this menu, and it was like MDMA, opium, uh, weed, ketamine. Like they just had
Incredible.
just had every mushroom shake. So they make Thai mushrooms and blend them up with like bananas and mangoes into like a smoothie.
That sounds great.
Yeah, so we had some fun experiences with that, and I got some LSD, and I actually told a story on the Maps bicycle night after party of my my LSD experience in northern Thailand, which was pretty fun.
Wow, that is so cool. Wow, that's funny. I feel like like these places, from an American perspective, are said to be very harsh on those penalties if it comes to getting caught with psychedelics or cannabis or anything of that nature, and yet they have a more cool place where you can go and they have a menu with all the stuff. I don't even think America has that. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been to a place like that really here, but I guess it's just kind of, I think it's like, I've been to a lot of places around the world where I can find these little underground spots,
Mm-hmm.
and when everybody's in on it, they want to keep it cool, they want to preserve it, so it might not, even here, there might not be like a mainstream known place, but there's definitely underground spots that are like trying to serve that fun of the community, and I equate it to almost
Mm-hmm.
like being at like a music festival. I mean, that's what it kind of felt like
Sure.
to be in Vang Vienne, Laos. It was like a music festival. It was like there was no
Right.
rules or anything.
Got it. Yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah, I have seen that. It's funny how lax like police and security will be at certain music festivals that I go to. People literally have signs that say "I have acid." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, like they're not trying to, unless you're causing a scene or being weird, like the cops aren't going to bother you. Like, and then there's things in place like the Zendo tents or just any type of, dance safe is another one where people are there to take care of you in case you are having an unexpected powerful trip or just a bad trip in general.
Yeah.
Which I like to think that no trip is bad. But again, I haven't really been on one, so it's hard to say that maybe. But I've certainly had trips that were challenging and asked a lot of me, a lot of participation from me, but never really just bad, just like, oh no, bad, it's all bad. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
How do you feel about how people interpret trips? Like, have you ever had a bad experience? Or are they mostly good?
Yeah, I think we get stuck in that good bad dichotomy,
Mm-hmm.
which it's I understand why as human beings we want to always paint a simple story about things. There's good, there's bad, there's heroes, there's villains. That's sort of the way that our brains like to interpret and organize a lot of things. But I'm on the same page with you. I think that as an experienced psychedelic user, I see it as all trips are learning experiences, whether it's challenging or not challenging, whether it's beautiful or whether it's a little scary. That
Mm-hmm.
I try not to label it that as such, but I can see where people who aren't as experienced and they don't really know what they're doing can get scared and can have these bad experiences because they don't really
Sure.
have a container nor the language to and the knowledge of understanding, oh, maybe I shouldn't take a 10 strip and go to Times Square, like
Right.
that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
For me, there are always these interesting post signs where you can feel if something kind of dark or weird is happening. And so for me, I have like these notions to change the environment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like within psychedelics, there is an ability on your part to shift the experience. You could shift it through breath work. You could shift it through changing the song. You can shift it through walking outside if you're inside and feeling very closed off, or vice versa. Say if you're outside and feeling very like vulnerable, it's like, oh, let's go inside where it's safe, you know?
Yeah.
You have to have these little like techniques to get around. And then of course there's the tried and true, I took a substance. I signed up for this. This is what I wanted. I'm not going crazy. I'm going to come down. You know, like you have to be able to talk yourself, you know, into a calm state as well.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. So when it comes to you, which is your favorite? Do you have a favorite like psychedelic, or do you just kind of appreciate all of them on a similar level?
Yeah, I appreciate all of them on a similar level, and I still haven't done every psychedelic known to man. So, but I have I think there's certain psychedelics I like for certain situations.
Hmm.
And you know, I definitely think, I mean, that's the sort of, that's the method, set and setting, like you were just explaining, you know, and energy, right? Isn't it so, it's so important to be tuned into the right energy and the right scene and the right group of people. Like energy really becomes a real thing when you're on psychedelics. Like we could talk about it in this
Hmm.
flowery way outside of the psychedelic space, but when you're with a group of people on LSD and you're having a great time, but then some drunk guy like stumbles into your group, you could feel that energy shift of like, oh, this
Yep.
isn't something that we really want right here. This is kind of polluting the water a little bit. So
Yep.
I think that's good. I always feel really safe in a lot. I guess I've been lucky to go to a lot of really good music festivals where the environment is really safe and friendly.
Hmm.
So I really like to. I love LSD is one of my favorite things to do at a music festival or a sunny day in the park or on a hike, something like that. So I really like that a lot for those kinds of situations. And I mean, sometimes at music festivals, I do a cocktail of things because it's just because I feel safe. I feel really safe. And I feel like really, okay, I'll do some LSD and MDMA, maybe a little ketamine, you know.
Hmm.
But I also like to use things therapeutically as well. So MDMA, ketamine, and psilocybin, I love to use therapeutically and like
Right.
big doses with a blindfold, sitting in a bed, that sort of thing, going in, journeying on my own. Microdosing is also something that I'll dabble with here and there.
Right.
I guess probably my favorite might be ayahuasca, which is kind of weird to say as being my favorite, but I really love, you know, I spent a good deal of time in the Peruvian Amazon at an ayahuasca center working there. And I really, really, really love that container of the
Hmm.
ceremony and the Icaros and the healers and the Shipibo people I was with, and the intention and that whole aspect of it, and then the experience of ayahuasca and the purging. Like there's nothing like a good purge and feeling
Hmm.
cleansed afterwards. So I might be a little sick maybe to say that or against the grain, but I really have a lot of respect for the indigenous ceremonial aspect of ayahuasca. I find that very
Yeah.
appealing.
Oh, I believe it. I haven't been lucky enough to go down yet. I've actually been invited once or twice, but I just haven't been in a space where I felt I could kind of unplug from everything I'm doing up here with my business in the States and stuff. To go have a full ayahuasca, you know, week long journey. But I do know a lot about the other, you know, chemicals that you were mentioning, and have experienced them myself and had very powerful life-changing realizations, that really set me on my path and helped me kind of declutter or defrag, you
Yeah.
know, the mind and like all the kind of bullshit that just swirls around in our brains every day, that and it builds up over time. It's like you can get cleansed, and unless you kind of have a very deep spiritual practice every day, and you're meditating constantly clearing that cache, like, you know, just a few weeks or months can go by and you're almost back in a similar place. So you have to have, you know, a practice, and you have to learn integration, to be able to make the most of these experiences. But what they have to offer is so beautiful. It is so helpful and beautiful and caring. It shows you the God within every other person and yourself, and that's what like namaste means. Is I recognize, the light within you, or the God within you, or whatever it is, like that peaceful, potential enlightened being that exists within all of us. I've always gotten very powerful messages from these experiences about, community, respect, integrity, ethics, like doing things the right way, um, simplification of your life, minimalization of your life. You've heard of the whole tiny home movement, or people who, like live a more simple life than, just trying to accumulate as much possessions as possible, because as we know, those things don't fulfill you, that you get like a momentary surge of happiness and adrenaline if you get a new car or a new house or whatever it is. But then, a few weeks later, you feel exactly the same, and you're trying to fill that hole with another thing. And then you're just accumulating shit over and over and over until you realize it doesn't work. People need to snap out of it and realize it doesn't work. The modern American model doesn't work. What does work are psychedelics. They show you. That's why I think MAPS is being so successful right now at getting MDMA and ketamine legalized for people who need it, and a lot of people need it. Like, we're in the most disillusioned society state right now that I've ever experienced. I haven't been around for super long or anything, but I mean, I can tell it's a different world these days, and I could tell people are overthinking. And you know what I mean? It's like people aren't in person anymore. They're all online, and especially during this quarantine.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get like your wires crossed when people are online, and maybe, you're misinterpreting what they're doing or how they're interacting, versus like, oh, the last time I saw him, we had a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a different world.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, you brought up a good point about the the defragging and the clearing the cache. Like, it is so useful. Maybe, I mean, maybe more now than ever before, because there's so much sensory input data coming in. Like, our environments are so stimulating, more so than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, though, I haven't been around for that long either. So, but I'm imagining that it really is a lot to take on as a human being nowadays, to be so plugged in, to have so much, even the things that we don't consciously acknowledge, but just scrolling, just seeing the amount of things the amount of headlines or tweets or Instagram images or pictures that I see on a daily basis that I don't necessarily need to see, but my brain is recognizing them. I think it's important to have that reset, to have that clearing, and that does bring you down to more of a calmer level, where you realize that, for myself, I realize that really the things that really fill me up and nourish my soul and give me the most satisfaction are the moments that I share with people in
Mm-hmm.
in connection and community. I mean, even these virtual gatherings that we're doing with Isolation Tank, I feel really connected there. I feel really
Yeah.
like time doesn't exist. I'm not like looking at the clock. I'm just like, wow, this is really engaging. I'm here with a group of people, and I think that that is something that has been shown to impact human health and happiness and wellness and longevity, is a
Mm-hmm.
strong sense of meaning and purpose within community.
100%.
Yeah.
And I get that vibe too, and I think that's why, through my journeys, I have found the importance of that, and I really like to create and help promote events that do that. It's funny because earlier, about like the containers that you kept kind of going in on, are music festivals. Music festivals are these places where people can collectively enter altered states and it be okay, even by like, the police's point of view, like for the most part, like as long as you're not acting the fool,
Right.
they usually just sit by and let people trip out and let people smoke weed, and like they're just kind of being safe. And I think they give those jobs to particularly maybe open police officers, and give the more like rigorous police officers a little more of a daunting task, like busting like some big ass massive like meth lab or whatever it is. But I'm just saying, like, music festivals. And one reason I love music is it's like those places are the modern day campfire where the shamans dance around
Yes.
and have that ecstatic experience and bring community together. And for a week straight after, everyone is lit like, oh, that last week was so great, and we all connected and felt our higher selves, and you can kind of get a big blast of dream vision too, as in the dream of life that you want for yourself, and where do you want to go, where you want to take that experience, how you can cultivate that experience for others and stuff. And really like keeping the respect for these medicines in mind, of course. No one's wanting to abuse them and use them in a way that's going to cause harm, which certainly you can do, and people should avoid it at all costs by researching set and setting, and also dosage, right? And also like trusting your source. All these things are very important. People, just because psychedelics are cool doesn't mean take a lot of them from people you don't know. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, and
So,
test them if you can. If you get some
right.
gear from Dance Safe and other organizations that yeah, you can test them and find out what you got.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, community, man, it's the best. It's super important, and I do think Isolation Tank is such a great community platform, especially because we do have these text chats going. And earlier when I was talking about the internet, a lot of it is those misinterpretations of text where like people aren't feeling the tone you're saying stuff in, and this and that. And I just think people are lost in it, just to be honest, because when I go, it's funny, I can't even go out to restaurants anymore because of the quarantine. But I was going to say, when you're at a restaurant, and especially after a psychedelic experience, you're still kind of charged up, fired up from that. You're at a higher level of kind of observation of the animal
Oh
that
my
is
God, yeah.
the human,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they're all just plugged into their phone, like
Yeah.
right next to each other. It could be four people all looking at the phone, and it's kind of tearing us apart, but at the same time, it equally connects us. It's so freaking weird. It's paradoxical.
Yeah.
It's hard to know where it's going.
I was just thinking of a time I ate mushrooms and went to a sushi restaurant, and
Mm-hmm.
and how vile it was to me, and like how I was just like, oh my God, what the fuck are we doing? We're just chopping up fish. Like, what is this? Like, it just,
Mm-hmm.
I oftentimes have that where I just become so hyper aware of the sentientness, if that's a word, of
Yeah.
all of life. And being in a restaurant, it is just this humorous human gathering, and everybody's a little isolated at their little tables, and they're ordering their things, and they bring us this plate, and there's this fucking dead animal on it, or fish or something, and you're like, what the fuck is that? Like, what are we doing? You just want to stand up
Mm-hmm.
and go, what are we doing? What is this?
Yep. And it's funny because when you enter that state, you can actually look back. And I'm not necessarily a Christian, but I was raised a Christian, and I feel like that is the state that Jesus was in when he went and flipped the tables and was like letting all the animals out of the cages. You know what I'm saying? Have you
Yeah.
heard of that scene?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Actually, this morning I just watched a good piece by Bill Maher about wet markets and the virus, and, in America, how we factory farm and zoos. And he tied it into like Joe Exotic and this whole thing. And, it really is crazy when we think about this sort of, what we sort of allow and tolerate. I try
Right.
my best to really stay away from that kind of thing, but the fact that it still goes on, I think it's really this idea of separation. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing that the psychedelic experience can do for you is bring you into a world of connection and interdependency and interbeing, as Charles Eisenstein uses that word from, I believe, Thich Nhat Hanh, which is like this really deeply connected state. Because when we go to the grocery store, when we go to the restaurant, we don't actually see the truth of what we're engaging in. But
Mm-hmm.
when you have a psychedelic experience, you see through the veil, you see
Right.
through the illusion, you see through the illusion of our comfort. that we want to
Yeah.
participate in. We want to be comfortable. We want to be comfortably ignorant, really. We have the packages with the happy cow on it and all this stuff. And we don't want to think about all the terrible things that go into putting it there. But
Right.
yeah, it's sort of this. I tweeted, I wrote something about this recently about how our reality right now is like a big magic trick. And we're like the audience that we like to be in on it. We like to be fooled. We like to be tricked. We like to say, wow, what an illusion. We don't want to, and then we would go, how do they do that? How do they trick us like that?
Right. Yeah, like a magic trick. When someone does a card trick and you're amazed, and instantly everyone wants to know, how did you do it?
Yeah.
I actually used to practice a little bit of magic card tricks and levitation and that type of stuff as a kid. I was super enamored with those magician type people, Chris Angel and, he kind of went down a funny path with where he ended up, but
Yeah.
I'm still a fan, whatever. It's cool. But yeah, I was into magic as a kid, so I totally get that. And I know what you're saying. Like, people want to know how it's done. They want to be just like, they want a spectacle, and as long as the entertainment industry can push a spectacle, people are willing to eat it up and just kind of like keep in their little comfort bubble. It's
Yeah.
interesting though, because those spectacles can offer resolution or some type of information about how to get around it if it's powerful art.
Yeah.
It's like
Totally.
a good album with real philosophical ideas being explored in the lyrics or the sonics, or even like a music video or a really well done film speaks on social commentary. For example, like the Joker one was a big one recently, where people would look at the kind of the fucked up nature of the metropolis and how people treat each other, and the government that underserves certain people. Like, I know that was like a social commentary piece, as effective as it was as a spectacle. Have you happened to see that film
Yeah, I
yet?
loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super powerful.
Yeah, I loved it. I think that it was just a great commentary on what happens when. Yeah, I mean, it was really like about class division and
Right.
that sort of thing. I mean, what happens when you don't take care of people who need taken care of in your society? Well, they explode, and they go crazy. And we were talking last night about comedy and how comedy is important. And one of my favorite talks by Alan Watts, I think in his audio book called Out of Your Mind, he talks, which is a great title. He talks about the role of this sort of the outsider, the commentator, the joker, the trickster, the shaman, the man on the hill that is a part of the society, but also detached from it, because you sort of need that. You need a critique and you need a commentary. Otherwise, your society goes insane. And I think that the Joker movie and what we are experiencing in our world now is this very like tight, rigid, forceful version of reality. And they even see this with like the president, right? Like, he's not so good at laughing at himself or taking criticism or people making fun of him. So I don't know how I'm going off on this, on what you said about Joker, but I think it plays into it in some way, of because the Joker in that movie, even though he is this kind of violent maniac, he puts on the clown makeup because he's like, this is a fucking joke. Like, this is a joke that this world that we live in is this way, and it's this sort of chaotic trickster Joker figure, almost like a Loki or something,
Yep. Oh
that
yeah.
terrorizes people and considers it comedy.
Right. Yep. And the direction behind that film, and obviously they were very conscious of the statements that they were making about society and those people who are underserved. It's very interesting and definitely needs to be heard, and it's a good way to inject the masses with some philosophy through that spectacle. And I think that is like the kind of the job of the artists, and the artist takes so many forms. I mean, even podcasting is an art. Joe Rogan arguably is an artist, bringing all of his ideas out and bringing them to the masses in a way that's unfiltered. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I realized where I was trying to go with that was about this idea in shamanic societies, and I guess in indigenous societies where they honored and respected the people who either could not participate or were unwilling to participate. And there's certain kinds of people, and these people are typically like artists, poets, but also in our world, the people that we classify as having mental illness aren't necessarily seen as that in a more indigenous society that reveres and respects people as becoming like the birth of a shaman, like having a schizophrenic break in, and I'm getting this from Joseph Campbell. He talks
Mm-hmm.
about these schizophrenic breaks in indigenous cultures are seen as a call to shamanize. It's the person going through this kind of difficult ordeal, if they're nurtured and respected by the society, that they could be a great value of the society. And kind of what I was saying about Watts as like this person as the outsider, like you kind of need that, the person that doesn't want to participate, the person that's the artist that wants to comment, that shows the rest of the people like, hey, don't take this too seriously. It's just a game. It's just a show. It's just a play. And
Mm-hmm.
so he says that basically if we don't have that person, it's an integral part of having a healthy society. If you don't have that, you have an insane world. So I really think that like if we were smart, we would learn that the people who really can be very helpful in making the world a better place are the musicians, the poets, the artists, and the people that we consider quote unquote mad, who would be more of a shaman type figure in our world, because we don't really have that in America.
Right. Right. Well, starting to, I think,
Yes.
and in low, and in the underground culture, there are certainly those type of people. But I know what you're saying. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, that is so interesting. So it's so cool because, it's funny when people are able to navigate psychedelic space reasonably well. It sounds like, based on this conversation, that we both have been there several times and we're both okay in those states and we're able to see our way through them, right? Is that the call of a shaman? Is that just us getting a good healing? Like, it's easy to kind of think like, oh, I'm one of those people that has this ability to navigate these spaces. I wonder, is that something everyone can do? Is that a few people? It's definitely a subculture, I understand, but it seems to be growing to the masses with, again, MAPS, bringing um, these two medicines, MDMA and ketamine, to the mainstream. What do you think about, shamanhood? Or can you be in an altered state and not be a shaman? Is a shaman just a person that lives in that state? Like, what is that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, we find ourselves in a really interesting place right now, because you have people who are operating in more of the mainstream, like MAPS and other organizations that are going about the rigorous kind of scientific and therapeutic model. You have psychotherapists who maybe aren't as experienced in those realms, and some of them maybe not even at all, but they sort of
Hmm.
understand the protocol from a specific kind of way. So in a way, they're not necessarily shamans, but more like guides, facilitators, something
Hmm.
like that. I think I think my opinion of a shaman is somebody who is not necessarily makes the choice to be that thing, but has no choice but to be that thing.
Hmm.
Um, Now I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but I feel that I'm very weary of people who call themselves that. I'm very weary of, and I think we touched on this last night too, about how in the spiritual consciousness community, this sort of like, I'm a shaman. Like I had an ayahuasca experience, and now I'm a shaman, and I'm gonna guide you, and just pay $1,200 to come to my retreat. And you know, some people like that, it's interesting. You really have to kind of tune in and see what's really true. I'm very weary of
Mm-hmm.
people that because everything sort of gets augmented and mutated by the structures in which we find ourselves living in. So in this
Right.
structure of capitalism, you have to play by a certain kind of rule in order to sustain yourself and your practice and those sorts of things. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's interesting. Well, what do you think about the role of a shaman being a temporary role? For example, um, there are people that are known as shamans, and like for years and years, that's their profession almost. That's who they are, and those are who we think of as like ayahuasqueros and people in South America who have been using this medicine since a kid and have super integrated it into their being. Um, but then sometimes you might just end up in the right house with the right people, and a guy who's super traversed in the realms invites you to participate. You go in, and they're kind of the guide and the central figure of delivering it to you, and so on and so forth. To you, having a powerful experience on the receiving end, you might, in those moments and in that context, think of this guy as a shaman. He's like, right? Like a temporary shaman. It was like he was the shaman for the journey.
yeah.
Could that be a thing? Is there like a shaman for the circle? And then outside of that circle, he's not a shaman anymore, right? It's like versus the idea that if you're a shaman like 24/7, That's
Yeah.
an interesting idea
Yeah, I would.
to me.
I guess. Yeah, I guess it's hard to put labels on. I think it's tricky to when we start putting labels on things. But I think that anybody that really holds a good space with the right intentions, with pure intentions, and is loving, caring, compassionate, and kind of knows how to navigate, can be a great
Hmm.
guide. And I think
Guide.
I view shaman more as somebody who's really been through the ringer.
Hmm.
Someone that's really went through a big challenging ordeal, in the ayahuasca tradition, really dieted all kinds of different plant medicines and worked a
Mm.
ton with ayahuasca and has their craft really down, really
Hmm.
almost like the equivalent of what we would consider, you wouldn't necessarily let me operate on you with a scalpel, one night because I saw a YouTube video. I mean,
Sure.
but if you really needed it and there was no one else around and I really tried my best to help you, that
Hmm.
counts in some way for something.
Yeah, you could have acted as the doctor versus being the
Yeah,
doctor.
like if
I
if
see.
you needed it and I was there and I had this intention of helping and serving, but I really view it more as the equivalent of somebody that, goes to college to learn, microbiology or whatever, and they're getting their PhD and they're in rigorous studies and testing and they're getting their
Yep.
hands dirty and they're experiencing the whole process and they're
I
interning
love
and,
that.
so that's sort of what I would label as a shaman. Yeah.
Incredible. Oh, that was such a good explanation. I feel like that little snippet could just be like, you know, what is a shaman? Is it the dude that gives you DMT that one night? Is it a guy that lives in that world? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah. So Campbell says that the shaman is the one who can walk between worlds.
wow.
He's on the precipice of being a madman and also like a wise man. He's the quote is like the madman and the mystics both swim in the same waters, except the madman drowns and the mystic comes back with something of value to offer to the community. It's someone that can handle that hero's journey of the death and rebirth, of going to the underworld and retrieving the gold and coming back to enrich the society and to heal, and then doing it
Hmm.
again and again and again. Someone that can go to heaven and hell and handle it, so to
Yep.
speak.
That's amazing. When you've been around people that are the shamans in South American ceremonies, is that what you would call it? A South American ceremony? Like, what would you call it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was at an ayahuasca center called the Temple of the Way of Light, and they
Hmm.
have Shipibo healers there, ayahuasqueros. So I guess they
Hmm.
don't really refer to themselves as shamans. I think there's tabaqueros, there's ayahuasqueros, maestros, maestras. I think that's the title that we
That's
use. Yeah.
interesting. So it might be more of a Western thing that we want to even go down there and call them a thing at all.
Right. Yeah. But we call them like a maestro or maestra.
Hmm.
Maestra. Yeah.
Interesting. So a shaman, is that more of like a mythical figure of someone who's played this role versus even people that are, like maybe doing it today?
I think the word shaman comes from Siberia.
Okay.
Yeah, if I'm correct about that. But yeah, traditional role of a shaman would be the one, I guess, that would go to that other realm and see or experience something and then bring it back in order to heal you. And so
Hmm.
with ayahuasca, I remember hearing that it wasn't a lot of the practice actually wasn't about giving the people ayahuasca, but the shaman would drink the ayahuasca and sit in front of you and see your sort of energetic other realm self and work on that and work on you. And through the
Mm.
song, the Icaros, which is like their energetic scalpel, going in there and kind of excavating and removing the things that are blocking and healing. And then it changed to where we ingest the medicine now, and they do as well, and we're both in that kind of place.
Mhm.
But then there's shamans of all different kinds, I guess, too. I mean, I don't know, in the Greek tradition, what they have, like the Oracle of Delphi, and it's just these people, I guess, that have the ability to see into that other realm, into other worlds,
Mhm.
and have visions and have dreams and have experiences that that they can then take back to help and to heal and to inform the people of sort of what they're, the bridge, I guess, the
Mhm.
bridge between worlds. Yeah.
Interesting. That's so cool. So, in your experience down in the South America, what are these maestros and ayahuasqueros like? Like maybe if you got any sense of their routine, or any sense of how they go about carrying themselves or their day, like how would you describe those people?
Oh man, all of the ones that I interacted with, their eyes just glow.
Mhm.
They just light up. They have such a light presence about them, and not to say that they're these like perfect angelic godlike beings, but they just have a way about them that really accepts all of life, that accepts all of the horror and all of the terror and all of the joy and all of the bliss. And I feel like really they'd really embody this like totality of a real human being, so much so that they laugh a lot. They hang
Mhm.
out, they relax, they cook food, they laugh a lot. They really they really enjoy um they really enjoy like life, they're just like the fullness of life. And so yeah, they I just see them as I mean, they're human beings just like us, but they they're yeah, they're special, I guess, in a way,
Yeah. It reminds me of these teachers that I had at one point when I went to a Kundalini yoga retreat. There are these older guys there, Matab and Siri, and they kind of remind me of what you're saying. Like I know they weren't doing ayahuasca. I'm sure they have experienced psychedelics in the past, but in fact, I did a podcast with Matab, and he did say he used to do, cannabis and acid. I'm pretty sure he said that. But it's just, yeah, this lightness of being, this kind of like floaty, like it's like you're floating place to place on a cloud and just serving whatever it is that kind of finds you in each of these places. Like we're in this yoga retreat. There are several buildings. There's a big meditation hall where no shoes are allowed in. There's massive gongs in there. Everyone's on like sheepskins and blankets, and it's just like this place where you go in. You have to kind of get quiet. You have to, okay, like everyone's talking, and oh, that dude over there is meditating. Oh, she's doing a headstand, and then like the master's just at the top behind the gong waiting for the class to start.
Mhm.
And he's just in meditation, just full bliss. And then you go eat, and they bless the food. That's a big part of the day, is this massive like meditation blessing on the food, where people would rub their hands together and chant, pretty much like that, like the mantra that tunes you in, to your higher self, as they see it, over the food itself. And then, dude, you eat that food and you feel so good. I
Mm,
mean, I can't even lie. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
like, I know people like bless food like as Christians and all type of things. I think there's something to it. I don't know what it
Oh,
is,
totally.
but
Yeah.
what's your experience with that? Like putting consciousness into the food and then you feeling like better, like more, you got more nutrition out of it. You got more fulfillment out of it,
I think everything is, and that's, I think, a trait of a healer is that they do everything with intention and reverence and respect and love. Everything. There isn't this notion of like, well, this is sacred and this is just whatever. I think everything has a sacredness to it. Everything has an aliveness to it. And yeah, definitely with food. I mean, I think that you could feel like when someone says, "Oh, this was cooked with love." I remember I had this great meal a little while ago, and it was all fresh tomatoes picked from this person's garden, and they made this amazing couscous thing, and it was just,
Mm-hmm.
and like this fresh cheese, and the freshness combined with, like, it was at first their intention to have it be fresh, and then their patience in letting it like grow, and then picking it, and then making it with love for the people that they're serving it to. And then when you know that, and you can kind of feel that almost energetic resonance when that plate is in front of you, and so it almost commands you in a certain kind of way to say like, hey, pay attention, this is some really good loving stuff.
Right.
And then you eat it with that knowledge in sort of a almost like a meditation, and really experiencing every morsel of it. And it's yeah, it really is a thing. I forget to do that. I don't do that all the time that I eat. Sometimes I'm
Yeah, me
shoving
either.
food in my mouth because I have to be
Same.
somewhere. But when you
Right.
can do that, it's great. There's nothing better. There's
Mm-hmm.
When you can slow down and approach things with presence, love, and attention, it really does increase the satisfaction and well-being of your life.
100%. Yep. Yeah. And I think that, that is, again, to circle back to psychedelics, what they can offer us a glimpse of, so that you can start to integrate that without being on psychedelics. Like when you get an orange and you're on LSD, you literally look at the thing for like 10 seconds before you even think about eating it.
Yeah.
And you're just like, bro, like,
Yeah.
what? I'm gonna put this thing in me? Whoa. And you finally taste it and you're like, oh shit. You
Oh
know?
my God, citrus is so great. I have a friend who's
Mm-hmm.
like in my music festival show crew who's just always has like a bag of fruit with him. So like whenever, and he like always pulls it out at the right moment. Like, dude, I got peaches. We're like, what? Like, yes, this is perfect right now. It's so fucking good.
Exactly. And it's funny how like those little things start to become your entertainment
Yeah.
versus like gotta check the phone for Twitter, or whatever it is. It's like, if as you start living a more spiritual life, those little moments that almost no one else even sees or has or thinks even exist, like the contemplation of eating your food before you eat it, and as you're eating it, realizing like this deeper level is going on. We just don't pay attention to it. It's always happening. You can choose to pay attention to it.
And that
um
feeling is that's what everyone's chasing, in this
mhm,
sort of entertainment, attention economy and materialistic egoic economy that we find ourselves in. That's the feeling that everyone wants. They want that
mhm,
feeling of when you and I eat citrus on acid. It's like,
right.
that's the feeling. And like, drug addicts were just pumped all these messages of like, get this and you'll be good, get this and you'll be happy. And
Mhm.
advertisements use that model to say, they show a Coke commercial, isn't like some morbidly obese guy sitting on his couch eating a bag of chips, drinking a Coke, and binge watching Netflix, go like,
Right.
with a sad look on his face, like Coke commercials are like people like dancing and happy, and because they're like, this is the feeling that you people want. Now buy a
Right.
Coke and you'll get that. That's the psychological
Right.
ploy there, and that's with everything. That's everything. So I really deeply believe that it's not like spiritual people are different in some way, but we've pierced through that illusion, and we found the thing. We go, oh, okay, yeah, this is bullshit, and these are the things that really make us happy. But I think that's what people really want. They want a sense of belonging and connection and happiness and satisfaction. They're getting tricked again. They're buying into the magician's trick without looking behind and saying, how do you do that? What is going on here?
Right. And with the whole Coke commercial idea, instead of get the thing that they're doing, do the thing they're doing. Just dance,
Right.
It's funny. It's like I have such a new relationship with dance because as a kid I was very stiff. The only thing that could really get me moving was playing with my band, Something Fiction. Um, as you kind of get into these altered like trance states with the music and the groove and the bass line hitting just those right, like rhythms, it would get me moving into this place. But other than that, I was very stiff, other than maybe a little head nod here or there if I'm like what I'm hearing. But these days, especially after some openings via psychedelics, I can find that rhythm that flows through your body. You hear like the expression, let the music move you.
Yeah.
Like I can totally attest to there's a place you can go where you're not dancing. You're just letting go. You're just letting it happen. And then like visibly to other people, it looks like you're trying and doing like this hard thing. Like, oh, he's so free, blah, blah, blah. You're not thinking about being free. You're just letting go. Right. For me, that's such a new thing. And I can't recommend it enough. It's pretty much called ecstatic dance, and a lot of people are tuning into this movement now, and people are hosting things literally like called ecstatic dance workshops, where it has a DJ, it has like an MC, and they just want you to move. There's like, helping people get out of their shell and move. And guess what? You feel great afterwards. That's why it's so funny how I could think back onto seeing like on TV and stuff, like certain scenes in different uh series I would watch where the girls just have to go have a night out and they would just dance the night away, and I had no idea. I was always like, what is that about? Like I don't get why girls do that. After a night of dancing, you get it. You're like, oh
Yeah,
you do feel different after that.
you just hit
It
just hit the
does
nail on the head.
activate something.
Yeah, I think it does activate something. You just hit the nail on the head. That's what it is. And I'm thinking of, like you said, it's about letting go and surrendering. And then about the girls that go out and have, girls' night out, we're just going to dance. Like women are really powerful in the sense that they're able to surrender, I think, more. They're just, it's more natural to them, I think, because, and I could be totally wrong about this, so women feel free to criticize me, but I'm going to take a leap and say, because the initiation practice, and I'm getting this from Campbell, and he talks about the rites of initiation and how men don't really have one, but women have one because they have a biological thing that happens to them. I actually I talked with Hallie Rose about this, about when women get their period. It's like there's this forcing of a surrendering to occur, and maybe it's just,
Right.
it's also just the makeup of women, but the feminine aspect, the divine feminine aspect of surrendering, allowing, and letting go is, I think, something really, really, really important, integral, and powerful that we can all learn from. And what's more pure than the dance? I mean, this whole reality is, life is a dance. Like if we could only learn how to, if the entire world could just learn how to surrender and dance, like we could be in a much better place, which is why we definitely do need to, those of us that recognize the power of the feminine, to help usher that new age in, where we have more women in positions of authority that can really show us that way, I think that that's
Mm-hmm.
really important thing. I've had some wonderful women in my life who, looked at me and said, "Hey, like relax, like settle down, like, surrender to the moment, like tune in," and it's just been such a gift that
Yep.
that I feel the male sort of egoic way is to tense up and can't show that I'm, whatever. I don't know. I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's a cult. I think it is a cultural thing that conditions us
Mm-hmm.
to be that way, much like women experience, the pressures of the commodified, commercialized material world to say you got to be this kind of way if you want to be
Mm-hmm.
an acceptable woman in society.
Right. Or wear these things or do your makeup this way or whatever it is.
Yeah, and we experience that too, to a certain
Yep.
extent. And so the letting go and the surrendering, you hit the nail on the head with that. I think that's a major lesson for a better world.
Yeah, absolutely. And kudos to all the females out there that are leading the charge with their artistic expression. I think that female artists are absolutely incredible and powerful, and they're moving the world in a positive direction. So many of them. I'm such a big fan of so many artists that are females and are bands led by females because yeah, they just have a way, man. I don't know. It's so hard to put into words, but they have a way of channeling a message to guys and to the world at large that is so much more open and less full of ego
Mhm.
than like the way that men do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm so much in awe of a woman who's like fully in her power and being really creative and I get in this like trance of like wow, and I think that
Hmm.
I remember taking this car ride with a woman friend of mine who's a doctor, and she was telling me that she's like, yeah, this was a while ago. She was saying that, yeah, a lot of guys I meet, like I don't have success with guys. A lot of guys I meet, they're intimidated by me because I'm a doctor, I'm smart, and I just remember thinking like that's a really insecure guy. I think to be into like I'm inspired by women
Yep.
like that. Like I'm like, oh, wow, like wow, it's
I
amazing.
love that.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I think that is such a good way to transmute those weird feelings that you might feel like intimidation is to look at it and transmute it into admiration and just admit that, you know what I mean, and live
totally.
in that
Yeah,
because for people it drives people away when they don't, that intimidation thing or that like I mean, yeah, that idea, it's an insecurity
yes,
rather than an acceptance state. So, learn to accept and look up to and learn from people and stop thinking you know it all. You know what I mean? I mean,
totally.
for me, that's kind of the message that psychedelics give me, which is why they're so amazing. Because it's I think this is a lot of people. It's not just me, but a lot of times you think you know shit pretty good. You think you know how things work and how this and that happens. And if you're successful in life, you start to really get kind of set in your ways. But that could be a major detriment to not be going with that flow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the psychedelic experience is a perfect way of doing that. If you're doing it in the right with the right intention, the right set and setting, like it is this. If you fight it, what you resist persists, and it's just going to be terrible. But if you surrender and allow, then because it's this unavoidable experience that's right in your face, and it's
Hmm.
like, look at this, and if you don't, then you just create more trouble. So, on the larger scale of the world that we find ourselves in, many more people could benefit from that kind of experience. And yeah,
Hmm.
one of my favorite books is Alan Watts's book, The Wisdom of Insecurity. It's just a phenomenal book. And
Hmm.
it's, he's basically talking about like the allowing to be in the realm of the unknown and not needing to know and feel all this shit, what's going on with the quarantine and all this stuff that's happening in the world. Like we're looking to authority figures and large institutions. These things are a thin veil of an illusion of safety and security. They're not really protecting us. Like we're the only ones that could really protect ourselves by hurling into the abyss, and going into
Hmm.
the surrendering into the realm of the unknown. But we construct our world out of this fear. and build up all these illusions to pretend, again, like the illusion of the magic trick. Like, it's all safe, it's all good, we're all protected, but
Mhm.
really, what the fuck are we? We're not,
Mhm.
no one, it's crazy. It's chaotic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things that happens to people with letting go or going with the flow or learning what the Tao is, which
Mhm.
is just the way that it's going to happen, is the bodily sensations of fear. People, they have anxiety. Anxiety is a bodily sensation. It's not just like, oh, it's just pestering thought. Like, no, their blood is actually pumping. You know what I mean? It's like sending them into fight or flight places. Anxiety, PTSD, stress. Stress literally becomes a bodily sensation. It's weighing you down. Like, you feel like this tension in your shoulders and your neck and your head. So in order to kind of like be able to see yourself free of all of these things, anxiety, stress, things pulling you down, you have to unlock your body.
Mhm.
That's why everyone talks about yoga when it comes to psychedelics and consciousness and meditation, and dance as well, something we were talking about earlier. Moving your body, moving the energy through your body, because we just literally sit all day, especially if we're sedentary, especially if we're quarantined even, you know what I mean? Like, we're literally just like sitting there when this thing is an animal. It's a tiger, it's a freaking jaguar. We're supposed to be out there using our limbs and flowing and dancing and swimming and doing these things that people just don't do,
Mhm.
except for on these rare occasions, like, yeah, once every 3 months we go swimming, or like whatever it is. It depends on, I guess, your culture, but that's how I feel it to be here amongst like the people I know.
Yeah.
Except for when we're consciously engaging in yoga, or go on a 3-mile run, go on a as long a run as you can at all, like try getting some cold water on you.
Mhm.
Why does it always got to be hot water? It's like, let your body shake free every once in a while, so that these things don't build up, because then you don't know why things are happening. You don't know why you feel stressed or you're unfulfilled, or this thing is bothering you when it's literally so small and insignificant compared to the things that you have and that you can choose to focus on.
Yeah.
But your body tells you other things. So it's just like, we have to look at what we're putting in our body, how we're treating our body. Are we getting enough rest? Are we running and dancing and playing and being an animal at the same time? It's so important. And yoga is a great way to practice it. There's also, what's it called? Qigong,
Oh yeah,
which
I
is a
love qigong.
very,
Yeah.
yeah, it's super fun. It's like a little
Yeah.
dance, but you feel some shit clearing out of your auric field, or this magnetic field around you. Like, you start to feel lighter and happier, and little things make you giggle instead of being so serious all the time.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
man, yeah. That you're really nailing it, because we tend to think, I think a lot of people, and I would say that it's probably more men than women, live in the space in the, like, the 3-4 inches above their eyes. It's like, and we've
mm-hmm.
constructed this world that represents that. It's a very technical, logical, rational, heady kind of, material thing. And the feelings, and I think that's what shamans understand as well. When they're like, I had an experience, I've had several experiences, but one that's coming to my mind, where I had a healer, a maestra, literally like rip this energetic black like blockage out of me. Like, I felt her
Wow.
with her powerful, powerful Icaros just getting into my body and getting into my body. And here I am thinking that it's something going on in my mind. But they understand that whatever is happening, there's these energetic blockages that happen in our body, where we have
I believe it.
yeah, spots where we have pain, or we're stuck, or we're hunched over, or we're tight, or we're tender somewhere, and they see something in there, and she just worked it and then just ripped it out, and I saw it like come
Mm-hmm.
out, and I'm like, oh my god, yeah, like the body is so important. And the sense of feeling into something, not necessarily
Right.
thinking about something, but feeling into it and feeling into that
Mm-hmm.
spot. One of the things that I learned through my therapeutic ketamine sessions with assisted ketamine sessions
Mm-hmm.
was to find the areas in my body that I was experiencing tightness or tense pain and
Mm-hmm.
go into it and identify it and like personify it and color it and talk to it and keep going in and having a dialogue with it in like a 2-hour session where I would resolve and heal that part and feel a lightness in that space and then a lightness in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an important aspect of this
Yeah.
human
That's
experience.
energy work.
Yes.
It's energy work. And it's funny is like they're not gonna paint that picture, you know, like come do the energy work with ketamine because then it looks a certain way, right? But honestly, like once you end up in that bed and you're having that experience, that's what's happening, you know? Like they're gonna market it as, hey, come take care of your PTSD because as a society, everyone has it, right? You know, it's like it's just to varying degrees, it seems like to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like
It is what it is, let other people, they can judge all they want, but you know what you're doing. And yeah, if the
mhm.
average person was able to kind of wake up to, and I'm still not fully like aware, but I know the power of healing ourselves and the powers that just human beings that we have. The like, I mean, even look at like the placebo effect, right? They categorize it, this thing as the placebo effect. Well, what the fuck is that? Like, our minds are so powerful. The abilities and the powers that we have are
Right.
go far beyond what we're told that we're capable of. We are not these, just sacks of meat that are going to be food for worms in the dirt. You just go to a job and you
Mhm.
punch the clock and then you die one day. It's like we are so much more than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is so crazy, man. The days that because like for instance, me and my friend Steven, well, we would plan a day a week in advance to have a journey, and you wake up that day, and before you even do it, you are feeling it. It's like there's future pull. There's a future pull to it. It's like the trip begins before you even ingest it.
Mm.
I don't know how or why, but you wake up that day and shit is different. It's like the day that you know you're gonna wake up at 5 a.m. and eat 3 grams of shrooms in the park for the sunrise. Like when you wake up that day, you're already, like you're already there.
Hmm.
It's so weird. I don't know how that works.
Yeah. That's
Um,
interesting.
and then in fact, you're actually like you're getting glimpses as to what's going to happen later before, and then things start clicking back and like making more and more sense. It's such an interesting effect that mushroom has where it allows you to see all these future events as lining up in the perfect sequential order to arriving exactly in this perfect moment to understand this perfect idea. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, it's I think we talked about this too on an isolation tank recently about time and like retrocausality and precognition and things like
Hmm.
that. Yeah, I've definitely I've had similar types of experiences, and sometimes in dreams, like where I would get like a little dose of something, and then I would be like, "Oh shit, I'm doing that right now!" Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I think, and that's a good sign. I think it's a good sign to kind of like you never want to, getting back to kind of the set and setting and dose thing, like you never want to force it, so when you have those moments like you just described it, what that tells me is that you're really aligned, with this kind, like this is the time has come, it's now,
Hmm.
and it's,
Hmm.
yeah, that to enjoy in that moment.
Oh, 100%. And it takes preparation to do that. It takes talking to each other, a week in advance. Hey, dude, are you ready?
Hmm.
Instead of this like willy-nilly, like we end up at a party that night. Oh, look what they have. Should we do it? We literally we say, are we going to do this next week? All right, let's clear all the calendar for that morning. So how are we going to prepare? This is of course pre-quarantine. We're going to sauna every day up until that day, and we're really going to kick our asses in the sauna. We're going to eat vegetables and highly nutritional meals up until that day. We're going to drink less alcohol, if any alcohol at all, up until that day. You wake up extra early because there's known to be kind of a sacred time in the morning. So that, you get that kind of quiet, like that quiet hum throughout all of the neighborhoods and the parks and stuff. The deers are just waking up, and it's just super mystical,
Oh
magical.
yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
mist out,
Oh
and
yeah, man. Yeah.
little dewdrops, and the sun's just peeking over, the sky's turning purple, and all the crazy stuff. And then it's like you find yourself in that moment, and it all made sense.
Matt, talk mystical to me, man. Yeah. Yeah.
I recommend it, man, because it's such a different journey that has such higher highs than even like as dope a night as you can have, like drinking with your bros and being out at the club and all the stuff. Like, you hunker down into this like work state for the experience later. And not only is that good for you, like it's good for you to cleanse and do all these things that you're deciding to do to have a higher high later, but then it's so much more rewarding when you get to that place than not caring about your body and not caring about the content that you're putting into your brain each day, and not taking this forthcoming trip seriously and all of that stuff, dude. You end up falling into a healthy lifestyle because you just want to get lit.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's like we all want to go to the highest highs, and we all want to experience the most blissful joys. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's very few people that I know that are in that state, if I know anyone who's in that state all the time. And I think it's just because of the nature of this reality that is duality, and then we have those moments where we transcend that. I've had moments where I've transcended the duality, but you can't really live there because you wouldn't really exist. So
Right.
maybe for some kinds of special monks and practitioners of that sort, but yeah, really getting to those places and then knowing that you're going to have that ultimate experience. But it's okay to then come back and contract. I think that's sort of the point of all this, is the expanding and the contracting, I got it, and then the forgetting, and then the remembering. And as long as it's not torturing you, I think that's the natural sort of ebb and flow of things, is the sort of the sun and then the moon and then the night and the
Right.
day, and the death and the rebirth of yourself pretty much almost every day.
Right. Totally. Yeah, I think there is a fine line there. You gotta stay balanced. You gotta walk the middle path. It's not about constantly being lit. It's not about being super in the dumps either. And what I like about psychedelics is they're so informative that they let you know, hey, don't do me again for a while.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They totally do that. They're like, all right, we sent you some love. Now you gotta respect us. Don't call us back till you need us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I've gotten that message a lot. Yeah. When I was down in the jungle, I was working at this place, but the message that I got, like I was having a lot of ayahuasca, like big ayahuasca experiences. And then one night nothing happened, but I did get this like message of just like, all right, dude, like you've shown up to the class without doing any of the homework. Like you got to do that's the integration. That's the part that matters.
right.
You can come for the fireworks show, but that's not what it's all about all the time. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And that can end up being a few months, a few years. It varies person to person, as to like when you will feel called again. But you just have to pay attention and make sure that calling is a true calling, and that you're going to have a true intention with a trip or a journey, and not, don't do it like a party. You know what I mean? It's not a party. It's for your evolution. It's for your spiritual wellness. You got to check in. You got to reset the cache, like we said earlier, and think about what you're thinking about. And it's funny how it takes like a third person perspective to see like, oh, I think about that a lot, and I don't really need to. What the heck? It's like it just helps you clear that so that you can make progress in your life. And life is like forever getting better. It's hard to say if you'll ever arrive anywhere. I think it's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
Just keep it flowing. we always have to remember what I think is truly important, and it's just happiness and community and all the stuff we've been talking about this whole podcast. So
Yeah, I think it's
it's
the
been
merging of the lower self, if you want to call it that, and the higher self, the sort of plugged in ordinary state of consciousness self with the enlightened whatever psychedelic self. It's like the merging of those two things into a balanced state. There's this book I love called Finite and Infinite Games, and James P. Carse, the author, talks about how really like this is an infinite game, and when you're a psychedelic kind of minded person, you get to tap into that infiniteness. And the
hmm
point of the infinite game is just to keep the game going, is just to keep going, keep moving, keep doing, and keep living. And then there's finite games. Like right now, I guess you would say that this is like a sort of a finite game that we're like, well, we have a podcast. There's like a clear start and there's a clear end. There's
hmm
a sort of a game rule here. And a lot of the things that we do in this ordinary, waking state of consciousness has these limits and these rules. But really the whole thing is infinite. This energy is infinite. So the point is to really keep that moving and keep that going, and the merging of the two, the accepting of the two, and the balance of the two, I think is that middle way that you were talking about.
Awesome. So I have one more question I want to dive into, so I don't take your whole afternoon up. But as far as being a creator, you're a creator. You create these episodes. You curate the people you want on, and you decide, in the moment on these podcasts, which topics to explore. Um, what does that do for you? Like putting stuff out, how does it make you feel? And yeah, just kind of, how does it make you feel?
Well, I think the feeling, the best feeling that I get is a feeling from a listener who will message me and say, "Hey, I tuned into your podcast, and I got this from it or that from it, and thank you for sharing these things. I feel less alone. I feel like maybe I was crazy and I didn't have any outlet or anyone to talk to. Like I really, I'm really I really feel good when I can connect with other people and who pick up on the show and get some real deep value out of it. I think that's the thing that keeps me going, is that um, knowing that, like, I really, really love to explore and have conversations and think about big ideas and stuff. And also I do a lot of shows where I do like solo casts, and I'll get real personal and vulnerable about stuff that, when we opened this up, I said that sometimes there isn't a separation between what I record and put out and what I say privately. I try and really
Mm-hmm.
expose myself as much as I possibly can. I really learned that when the first time I went to go drink ayahuasca, and we were all sitting in a group, and they were like, "Why are you guys here?" And I was the first one to talk, and I basically just laid it all out, like all my problems, like everything. And a lot of people came up to me after that, and they were like, "Thanks for doing that. You really opened us up and gave us all permission to go deeper than maybe we normally would have gone." And that really,
Mm-hmm.
that meant a lot to me, because I didn't realize, like, I didn't have that intention at the time of like, "Oh, I'm going to be the guy that says the truth," or whatever. I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
and this is my attitude on life, really, is like, what are we all doing? Like, who are we trying to kid and fool? Like, what are we all hiding and protecting from? Let's get it out there. Let's expose it. Let's, really get raw and real about life and our experience of it. And so that's the best feeling that I get, is when some like college kid or something is like, "Hey, I got more out of your show than I got in class," or, "You changed my life," or "You helped me," or something like that. And that just means the world to me, because that's what I feel great if I can help people in whatever way that I can. Maybe I'm not changing the world or whatever, but if I can help inspire people to be more authentic or be more of themselves or feel less alone, that's the best feeling in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man. That was super great. And Yeah, it's so cool to meet you recently, and I'm glad we could, connect on these, and I look forward to future conversations. So, where can people, find your podcast, and what would they search for, and how do you recommend they kind of engage there?
Yeah, so wherever you listen to podcasts, it's there. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast, all those places. YouTube, although I don't really do too much video, it still goes up on YouTube as an audio file. You can go to my website, mikebranc.com, BRANC. And I think that's probably about it. Oh, follow me on, social media, Mike Brancatelli or Mikeadelic, and Mikeadelic _podcast on Instagram. And yeah, man, likewise, Matt. I feel like it's just so great to find the others and connect, and with people like yourself, who's like a kindred spirit. And can't wait to have you on Mikeadelic and learn more about your story.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Much love, and have a good rest of your day.
You too.